Thomas Mitchell had been guarding the royal family for 12 years, but nothing could have prepared him for the sound that pierced through the marble corridors of Kensington Palace that cold November morning. Princess Charlotte's voice, usually filled with laughter and curiosity, now carried a desperate cry that made his blood run cold. "Camilla! Camilla! Please help me!" The 8-year-old princess's tearful shout echoed through the grand hallway, bouncing off the ornate walls decorated with centuries-old portraits of British royalty. Thomas immediately dropped his morning tea, the fine china cup shattering against the stone floor as he sprinted toward the sound. His heavy boots thundered against the polished marble as he navigated the winding corridors he knew by heart. The palace, usually alive with the gentle hum of daily activities, seemed to hold its breath. Servants paused in their duties, their faces etched with concern as the guards' urgent footsteps grew louder. Princess Charlotte had always been a spirited child, full of energy and mischief that reminded everyone of her late grandmother, Princess Diana. She was known for her infectious giggle and her habit of sneaking extra biscuits from the kitchen. But this morning was different. Something was terribly wrong. As Thomas rounded the corner leading to the family wing, he caught a glimpse of Charlotte's small figure at the far end of the hallway. She was standing outside Queen Camilla's private sitting room, her blonde hair disheveled and her school uniform wrinkled. Her face was streaked with tears, and her small hands were pressed against the heavy wooden door. "Your Highness!" Thomas called out, his voice carrying both authority and genuine concern. "What's happened?" Charlotte turned toward him, her blue eyes wide with fear and confusion. In that moment, Thomas saw not a princess, but a frightened little girl who desperately needed help. She had always been close to her step-grandmother Camilla, who had patiently taught her about royal duties while still allowing her to be a child. "Thomas!" Charlotte cried, running toward him with outstretched arms. "Something's wrong with Camilla. She won't answer me and the door is locked." The guard knelt down to Charlotte's level, his training kicking in as he assessed the situation. His mind raced through various protocols and procedures, but his immediate concern was for the distressed child in front of him and the potential emergency behind the locked door. "Tell me exactly what happened, Princess," Thomas said gently, placing his hands on Charlotte's shoulders to steady her. "Take a deep breath and tell me everything." Charlotte wiped her nose with the back of her hand, a gesture so normal and childlike that it made Thomas's heart ache. "I came to show Camilla my art project before school," she began, her voice shaking. "We always have breakfast together on Wednesdays, but when I knocked, she didn't answer." The little princess continued her story, explaining how she had used their secret knock, 3 short taps followed by 2 long ones, that Camilla had taught her months ago. It was their special signal that always brought a smile to the Queen's face and immediate access to warm hugs and stories. "I heard a noise inside, like something falling," Charlotte said, fresh tears streaming down her cheeks. "Then I heard Camilla calling for help, but her voice sounded different, scared. I tried the door, but it's locked. And now she's not answering at all." Thomas felt his stomach tighten with worry. Queen Camilla, despite being in her 70s, was typically healthy and vibrant. She maintained an active schedule and was known for her punctuality and reliability, especially when it came to her commitments with the grandchildren. The guard's radio crackled to life on his belt. "Mitchell, report your status. We've received word of a disturbance in the family wing." Thomas quickly responded while keeping his eyes on Charlotte. "I'm with Princess Charlotte outside Queen Camilla's sitting room. The princess reports that Her Majesty may need medical assistance, requesting immediate backup and medical team." As he waited for the response, Thomas examined the door. It was one of the original palace doors, heavy oak with intricate carvings and a traditional lock mechanism. The silence from within was deafening, broken only by Charlotte's quiet sniffles and the distant sound of approaching footsteps. "They're coming to help," Thomas assured Charlotte, though his own worry was growing by the minute. Your step-grandmother is going to be fine. She's strong, just like you." Charlotte looked up at him with trust and hope in her young eyes. "Promise?" Before Thomas could answer, they heard a faint voice from behind the door. It was weak and muffled, but unmistakably Camilla's voice calling out. Charlotte immediately pressed her ear against the door, her face lighting up with relief. "She's okay." "She's talking!" Charlotte exclaimed, though Thomas could hear the strain in the Queen's voice even through the thick wood. The sound of running footsteps grew closer as the palace medical team and additional security personnel responded to Thomas's call. But even as help arrived, Thomas knew that these next few minutes would be crucial. Something had happened to Queen Camilla, and Princess Charlotte had been the first to realize the danger. As Dr. Harrison, the royal physician, arrived with his medical bag, followed by 2 other guards and a maintenance worker with tools to handle the locked door, Thomas felt a mixture of relief and apprehension. The emergency response was swift and professional, but the uncertainty of what they would find behind that door weighed heavily on everyone present. Charlotte clung to Thomas's hand as the adults worked around them, her small fingers squeezing tightly as if drawing strength from his presence. The little princess had shown remarkable courage in seeking help, and Thomas made a mental note to commend her bravery once this crisis had passed. The maintenance worker examined the lock while Dr. Harrison spoke softly to Camilla through the door, trying to assess her condition and keep her calm. The Queen's responses were growing weaker, adding urgency to their efforts. "Almost there," the maintenance worker announced as he worked with specialized tools. "This old lock is stubborn, but I'll have it open in just a moment." Thomas could feel Charlotte's tension as they waited, her young mind probably imagining the worst possible scenarios. He squeezed her hand reassuringly, silently praying that whatever was wrong with Queen Camilla would be something easily treatable. The lock finally clicked open with a decisive sound that seemed to echo through the hallway. Dr. Harrison immediately pushed through the door, followed by the other medical personnel, while Thomas gently held Charlotte back to give them space to work. From their position in the hallway, they could hear Dr. Harrison's calm, professional voice as he assessed the situation, though his words were too quiet to understand clearly. Charlotte stood on her tiptoes, trying to peer around the adults and into the room. "Is she going to be okay?" Charlotte whispered, her voice barely audible above the activity in the room. Thomas looked down at the brave little princess who had potentially saved her step-grandmother's life through her quick thinking and courage. "Because of you, Princess Charlotte, help arrived quickly. You did everything right." As they waited for news from inside the room, Thomas reflected on how this morning had started so normally and had transformed into a crisis that would test everyone's resolve and bring out both the vulnerability and strength that existed within the royal family. Dr. Harrison emerged from Queen Camilla's sitting room after what felt like hours, but had only been minutes. His face was serious but not grave, which gave Thomas a small measure of relief. Princess Charlotte immediately stepped forward, her young face etched with worry and hope. "How is she, Doctor?" Charlotte asked with a maturity that surprised even Thomas. Despite her 8 years, the weight of royal responsibility seemed to settle on her small shoulders in moments like these. Dr. Harrison knelt down to Charlotte's level, his kind eyes meeting hers. "Your step-grandmother had what we call a dizzy spell, Princess. She fell and hurt her ankle, and she's feeling quite weak. But because you were so brave and called for help quickly, we can take proper care of her." Thomas watched as relief washed over Charlotte's face, followed immediately by a new wave of concern. "Can I see her? She must be scared." "In just a few minutes," Dr. Harrison promised. "We need to make sure she's comfortable first, and then you can visit with her." Inside the sitting room, Thomas could hear the quiet efficiency of the medical team as they worked. Queen Camilla's voice, though weak, was more audible now as she spoke with the nurses. The relief in her tone was evident as she realized that help had arrived and that Charlotte was safe. Thomas's radio buzzed again, and the voice of his supervisor, Captain Reynolds, came through clearly. "Mitchell, I need a full report. What's the situation?" "Queen Camilla experienced a medical episode in her private sitting room," Thomas reported professionally while keeping his voice low. "Princess Charlotte discovered the emergency and alerted security. Medical team is currently providing care. Her Majesty is conscious and responsive." "Understood. I'm notifying their Royal Highnesses immediately. Maintain security around the area and ensure Princess Charlotte's well-being." As Thomas acknowledged the orders, he realized that soon the entire family would be arriving. Prince William and Princess Catherine would want to be here for both Camilla and Charlotte. The palace would spring into its well-rehearsed crisis management mode, with security increased and schedules rearranged. Charlotte tugged on Thomas's sleeve. "Will Mummy and Daddy be coming?" "Yes, Princess. They'll be here soon," Thomas assured her. "Would you like to sit down while we wait? It's been a very exciting morning for you." Charlotte nodded and allowed Thomas to guide her to a small bench in the hallway. Her school bag lay forgotten near Camilla's door, its contents spilling out slightly. Thomas noticed a carefully crafted art project among her belongings. A painted picture of the royal family with bright colors and childish but recognizable figures. "Is that the project you wanted to show Queen Camilla?" Thomas asked, pointing to the artwork. Charlotte's face lit up despite her worry. "Yes. I painted all of us at the summer garden party. See? There's Camilla in her favorite blue dress, and there's me and George and Louis. I worked on it all week." Thomas smiled at the innocent joy in her voice. Even in the midst of crisis, children had a remarkable ability to find brightness. The painting was indeed colorful and sweet, showing the family gathered around a picnic table with exaggerated smiles, and Charlotte herself prominently featured holding hands with Camilla. "It's beautiful," Thomas said honestly. "Queen Camilla will love it. She'll be so proud of your hard work." "Do you think she'll still want to have breakfast with me next Wednesday?" Charlotte asked. And Thomas could hear the underlying fear that this incident might change their special routine. "I'm certain she will," Thomas replied. "Your step-grandmother loves spending time with you. One dizzy spell won't change that." The sound of approaching footsteps echoed through the corridor, and Thomas recognized the distinctive pace of Prince William even before he came into view. The Prince of Wales moved with purpose, but not panic. His training in both military and royal protocols evident in his composed demeanor, despite the obvious concern etched on his face. "Charlotte!" Prince William called out as he spotted his daughter on the bench. "Daddy!" Charlotte jumped up and ran into her father's arms, finally allowing herself to truly cry as the stress of the morning caught up with her. Prince William held his daughter tightly while making eye contact with Thomas over her head. The guard could see both gratitude and worry in the prince's expression as he assessed the situation. "She did everything right, Your Royal Highness," Thomas said quietly. "Princess Charlotte's quick thinking and bravery likely prevented a much more serious situation." Princess Catherine arrived moments later, slightly out of breath from her hurried journey. Her maternal instincts immediately kicked in as she saw her daughter in distress, but she also maintained the composed presence that royal training had ingrained in her. "Sweetheart, are you all right?" Catherine asked, stroking Charlotte's hair as the little girl transferred from her father's arms to her mother's embrace. "I was so scared, Mummy," Charlotte admitted. "Camilla didn't answer our secret knock, and she sounded hurt." Catherine and William exchanged a look over their daughter's head, a communication that spoke of shared concern, parental pride, and the unique challenges of raising children within the royal family, where even childhood fears could become matters of state security. Dr. Harrison chose that moment to emerge from the sitting room again, this time with a more positive expression. "Your Majesties," he addressed William and Catherine formally, Queen Camilla is stable and responding well. She experienced what appears to be a drop in blood pressure that caused dizziness and a fall. Her ankle is sprained but not broken, and she's requesting to see Princess Charlotte. "Can we go in?" Charlotte asked immediately, looking between her parents and the doctor. "Of course." "But we should keep the visit brief," Dr. Harrison agreed. "Queen Camilla needs rest, but I think seeing you will actually help her recovery." As the family prepared to enter the sitting room, Thomas felt a deep sense of satisfaction. His 12 years of service had involved many different situations, but few had felt as personally meaningful as this morning's events. He had witnessed the strong bonds within the royal family and had seen Princess Charlotte's character shine through in a moment of crisis. Prince William paused before entering the room and turned back to Thomas. "Thank you, Thomas. Your response time and care for Charlotte have been exemplary." "Just doing my job, sir," Thomas replied, though the recognition meant more to him than he would admit. "No," William said firmly. "You went above and beyond today. Charlotte felt safe because you were there, and that means everything to Catherine and me." As the family disappeared into Queen Camilla's sitting room, Thomas could hear the immediate brightening in Camilla's voice as she greeted Charlotte. The reunion was clearly emotional but positive, with Camilla's grandmother instincts overriding her own discomfort to reassure the worried little girl. Thomas remained at his post in the hallway, but his mind wandered to thoughts of family, duty, and the privilege of serving people who, despite their titles and positions, faced the same fears and joys as any other family. Princess Charlotte's bravery had reminded him why his job mattered beyond mere protocol and procedure. The morning sun streamed through the tall palace windows, casting long shadows across the marble floors. What had begun as a routine Wednesday had become a day that would be remembered for a little girl's courage and a family's love. 3 days later, Thomas found himself back in the same corridor, but the atmosphere was completely different. The tension and fear had been replaced with quiet recovery and gentle laughter emanating from Queen Camilla's sitting room. Princess Charlotte's voice could be heard clearly as she read aloud from one of her favorite storybooks. Queen Camilla had insisted on remaining in her familiar surroundings rather than being moved to the medical wing, and her sitting room had been temporarily converted into a comfortable recovery space. The royal physicians had agreed that familiar surroundings would aid her healing, especially with the emotional support of family nearby. Thomas had been assigned to security detail for the area, ensuring that Camilla's recovery remained private and undisturbed. It had given him a unique window into the family's genuine care for one another, far removed from the formal public appearances that most people associated with royal life. And then, the brave knight realized that the dragon wasn't scary at all, just lonely, Charlotte's voice carried through the partially open door. "Just like I thought Camilla might be lonely when she didn't answer the door." Thomas smiled at the child's ability to weave her recent experience into the stories she told. Children had a remarkable way of processing difficult events, and Charlotte seemed to be handling everything with typical resilience mixed with newfound maturity. "That's a lovely way to think about it." "Darling," came Queen Camilla's warm voice, stronger now than it had been 3 days earlier. "Sometimes when people need help, they might seem scary or different, but really they just need someone to care about them." The conversation continued with Charlotte asking questions about knights and dragons, but Thomas could tell that underneath the fantasy, they were really talking about courage, helping others, and the importance of speaking up when something seemed wrong. Dr. Harrison emerged from the room carrying his medical bag, looking satisfied with his patient's progress. He nodded to Thomas with a professional smile. "How is she today, doctor?" Thomas asked quietly. "Much improved," Dr. Harrison replied. "Her blood pressure has stabilized, and the ankle is healing well. More importantly, her spirits are excellent, thanks largely to her devoted nursing assistant in there." Thomas chuckled, understanding that he was referring to Princess Charlotte, who had appointed herself as Camilla's primary companion during recovery. The little girl had been bringing books, artwork, and endless chatter to help pass the time. "Princess Charlotte has barely left her side," Thomas observed. "It's been therapeutic for both of them," Dr. Harrison noted. "Queen Camilla feels useful and loved, and Princess Charlotte feels she's contributing to the healing process. It's quite beautiful to witness." As Dr. Harrison departed, Thomas heard footsteps approaching from the other direction. Prince William appeared, carrying a tea tray that looked rather precarious in his hands. "Let me help you with that, sir," Thomas offered, steadying the tray as William adjusted his grip. "Thank you," William said with a grin. "I'm much better at helicopter flying than tea service, apparently." The prince knocked gently on the door frame before entering. "Room service," he announced cheerfully. "Daddy," Charlotte's voice called out excitedly, "come see what Camilla taught me to draw." Thomas resumed his position, but couldn't help overhearing the family interaction. William was asking about Camilla's comfort, discussing plans for a gradual return to her regular schedule, and listening to Charlotte's detailed report on her patient's progress. "She ate all her soup at lunch," Charlotte reported seriously, "and she only winced twice when she moved her foot." "Excellent nursing notes, Dr. Charlotte," William replied with mock formality that made both Charlotte and Camilla laugh. The sound of genuine happiness filled the corridor, and Thomas reflected on how this incident had actually strengthened the family bonds. Crisis often revealed true character, and what he had witnessed over the past few days was a family that genuinely cared for each other beyond duty or obligation. Princess Catherine arrived shortly after, carrying Charlotte's school bag and a folder of homework. "Time for math lessons, I'm afraid," she announced as she entered the room. "Can I do my math homework here with Camilla?" Charlotte asked hopefully. "She's very good at numbers." "If Queen Camilla feels up to it," Catherine replied diplomatically. "I would be delighted," came Camilla's voice. "Though I should warn you, Charlotte, my arithmetic skills might be a bit rusty." As the afternoon progressed, Thomas witnessed something remarkable. What had started as a medical emergency had evolved into an impromptu family gathering. Even Prince Louis appeared with his nanny, bringing drawings he had made at nursery school. The sitting room filled with the comfortable chaos of family life. Thomas's radio crackled softly. "Mitchell, status report." "All secure in the family wing?" Thomas responded quietly. "Queen Camilla continues recovery with family present." "Understood. You'll be relieved at 1800 hours. As his shift neared its end, Thomas felt a sense of completion about the week's events. What had begun with his desperate dash through these same corridors had concluded with healing, both physical and emotional. Princess Charlotte appeared in the doorway, having finished her homework session. "Thomas," she said brightly, "Camilla wants to thank you properly." Thomas followed Charlotte into the sitting room, where he found Queen Camilla propped up comfortably in her favorite chair, her injured ankle elevated, but her demeanor bright and alert. "Thomas," Queen Camilla said warmly, "I understand that your quick response and care for Charlotte made all the difference that morning." "Your Majesty, I was simply doing my job," Thomas replied respectfully. "Perhaps," Camilla smiled, "but you did it with exceptional grace under pressure. More importantly, you made Charlotte feel safe and cared for during a frightening experience." Charlotte beamed with pride as she stood next to Thomas. "He's the fastest runner in the whole palace," she declared with 8-year-old certainty. "I don't doubt that," Camilla agreed. "And I hope you know, Thomas, that your dedication doesn't go unnoticed or unappreciated." As Thomas prepared to leave for the day, he paused to look back at the scene in the sitting room. Charlotte was curled up next to Camilla's chair, showing her the art project that had started this whole adventure. Prince William and Princess Catherine were discussing weekend plans that would accommodate Camilla's recovery needs. Prince Louis was building a tower with blocks on the carpet. It was a picture of ordinary family life that happened to take place in extraordinary surroundings. The titles, the protocols, and the formalities faded away to reveal what mattered most: people who loved each other taking care of one another. Thomas's footsteps echoed differently as he walked back through the corridor that evening. The marble floors and ornate walls remained the same. But his understanding of what he was protecting had deepened. He wasn't just guarding buildings or maintaining security protocols. He was safeguarding a family, with all the love, worry, joy, and connection that family relationships entailed. As he reached the end of the corridor, Thomas could still hear faint laughter from behind him. Princess Charlotte's voice rose above the others, animated and happy as she told another story about brave knights and rescued dragons. The guard smiled to himself as he headed home, knowing that tomorrow would bring another day of service, another opportunity to ensure that the warmth and love he had witnessed this week could continue to flourish within these ancient walls. Sometimes the most important moments of duty came not from following protocol, but from recognizing when to put humanity first. Princess Charlotte had understood that instinctively when she heard Camilla's call for help. Thomas had followed her example, and together they had proven that courage and compassion could transform a crisis into an opportunity for deeper connection.